I felt like I was being held at gunpoint watching this whole Ghorman Massacre play out. Like, the adrenaline, the anger, the fucking
Mhm.
anger, seeing that dumbass sniper shoot one of his own so that, a whole riot would start and people start shooting at each other. And you see them literally open fire on innocent civilians, unarmed. That guy that's standing at the top, just
Waving a
protesting,
flag.
waving a flag, shot down. Like, oh. Welcome back to This Is The Wayseekers, a podcast for Star Wars fans by Star Wars fans. This is probably going to be a very mournful episode of This Is The Wayseekers, a very sad one with these new episodes of Andor that we're going to discuss. But on the other side of things, we got to see some characters collide that we've been seeing separate, apart for all this time. Kind of like us, Scotty. We're coming together now to discuss Andor Season 2, Arc 3. Scotty, how are you feeling this week? I know things are heavy in the room right now, but I hope you're holding strong.
Yeah, this was a really powerful episode in so many different ways, in some really positive and uplifting ways, and some really sad, just really sad and tragic ways. This episode or this arc was a lot.
Yeah,
I definitely teared up multiple times. No
me too.
surprise there. And to the point where I was like choking up and like trying to hold
Mhm.
it back because it was about to get ugly.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. And I even cried, and that's usually not a thing for me, but even in some of the moments, like seeing what's Cyril's mom's name? It's slipping
Edie,
my mind. Edie, seeing her reaction to Cyril possibly dying. As far as she knows, we know he's dead.
you think that's
Even
what that
things like
was?
that got me upset and sad. What do
You
you
think
mean, do I
that's what
think
that
that's
was?
what it was? She's
I thought that
watching the
was.
news thinking about how her son is dead.
I'm so dumb. I was like, she's so full of propaganda. She's crying about the lost Imperial soldiers.
No, she's crying because she knows Cyril is there. I
Yeah.
mean, hello.
Well, sorry, girl.
But I don't know. I even though I'm like didn't like her character and things, it's just like the tragedy of it all. And I feel that way about so many characters, Dedra, Syril, characters that are obviously at fault here and bad characters and bad people, but I can't help but look at them as victims of this entire imperial regime. The empire taking advantage of them, and I don't
Yeah.
know, maybe call me the friend that's too woke, but Dedra, Cyril, they are victims of this entire thing. I mean,
Yeah.
we've heard Dedra's backstory now, and just the way that the Empire takes advantage of these people, to the point where they're so far gone by the time they both kind of realize that things
Yeah.
are way fucked up. It's beyond their control. There's
Yeah.
no going back at that point, and that's the tragedy of it all. And whew, that's not even at that point halfway through the damn arc.
Yeah,
So,
that was one thing I wrote down is one, they're in too deep that there's no turning back at this point, and
mhm,
that's tragic on its own. And I'm a little curious if they're going to use Dedra as a scapegoat and try to
I know.
place all this blame on her. Which, sorry, girl, like you made the decision at the end of the day, so you're going to get what's coming for you, especially for all the
100%.
people whose lives were lost under
Mhm.
her command.
Yeah, 100%. Just the amount of fuckery that went on, and it felt so real and so tragic. So I want to get into it. I want to talk
Yeah.
about it. I guess let's start with maybe the happier side of things, the way the episode started. To BBY, we find Cassian, Andor, and Bix both living on Yavin. Did you
Yeah.
expect to see Yavin kind of forming already? I kind of assumed it'd be the last arc.
Honestly, not at all. I didn't expect it
Yeah.
at all. I didn't expect that we'd be seeing, like, literal troops, like, being
Hmm.
recruited or, like, people that were coming to join the rebellion, which I thought was
Yeah.
really cool too. That's
Hmm.
how, we get our reunited with Wilman as well.
Yeah, 100%. And that was really cool because we talked about last week, would he be
I
staying with
know.
Saul's
I ate my
partisans?
words. I ate my
Yeah.
words because you
I
said
mean,
he'd be there, and I was like, "No, he won't."
yeah, exactly. And I wish we got to see that happen, not, off screen, but it's still interesting. I wonder what happened there, if he, fell out of touch with Saw. Was there some sort of argument? For some reason, I assumed at the start that like Saw was there on
Oh.
Yavin, and then eventually they would be like kicking Saw off of Yavin. But I don't know.
Yeah,
That obviously wasn't the case. But
and I almost feel like he's Saw's way too far gone at this point to where they won't
Mhm.
even let him come to Yavin if he wanted to.
Exactly. Exactly. I just wonder what happened off screen to where he's now working with Luthen instead of
Mhm.
Saw, because Saw even mentioned working with Luthen in during his whole crazy speech about like, you're not with Luthen, you're here now, you're here with
Yeah.
me, like.
Yeah.
So
It seems like he's been filling Cassian's place while Cassian has been on Yavin, and someone's
yeah.
filling in for his spot with Luthen, I guess, now that Bix and Cassian are doing their thing.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And he comes in here with a mission to kill Dedra Meero, for multiple reasons. One, because of what she did on Ferrix. Two,
Mhm.
because she's kind of learning more about Luthen, and Luthen obviously wants her killed. But most
Mhm.
importantly for Willman, I think, is that she's the one who killed his dad.
Well,
Which
and he's been working with the Gorman front too, and he wants to
Mhm,
prevent what happened to his home before it happens to the
exactly.
Gormans. And we find out he's got a little girlfriend, so once again, feelings are
hmm
involved. This boy moves fast. He
I
finds a
know.
blonde girl wherever he goes.
Yeah, well, he's definitely Cassian's son. Now that Cassian's kind of taken that role, I don't
Yeah.
know what you'd call it if they're like siblings. I look at it as Cassian and Bix are his newfound parents, but I don't know if that's the dynamic. But what I think is interesting about seeing Yavin form is the way that like we see, like you said, these troops being recruited. They seem almost excited as they're running into Yavin, just ready for, you know, to have hope to fight for a better galaxy. And then
Yeah.
on the contrary, we're seeing Gorman just fall apart, just the empire cracking down on these people to the point where Syril even notices it
Yeah.
before he even talks to Dedra. And she tells him that they need to evacuate, that things are starting to come to fruition here. Even Syril notices just how fucked up things have gotten on Gorman. We see the newscast, they're
The
talking about how there's
propaganda.
the propaganda, yes, how the empire has continued to allow them to, have this sort of rebel activity, but they're all at the end of the day playing into the empire's hand, which is so tragic because the characters start to notice it. I can't remember the dad's name. I have it written down here.
Rylance.
Rylance, yes. He literally realizes before it's too late that the empire planned this. They wanted everything to happen here, and it's so sad. And seeing him confront Syril about everything, that scene was great. I don't know the actor's name, but Jesus fucking Christ, his performance, just the like, you could feel the panic, the absolute hatred for the man
Yeah.
standing in front of him. Such a good fucking performance.
Yeah, that was really rough because as he was realizing it was a trap, I feel like we, the audience, were realizing they were setting a trap as well. And like I wanted to jump through the screen and like shake these people and be like, no, you're literally doing exactly what they want you to do. And it's unfortunate because like if I was on Gorman, I think I would feel the same way. Like I want to stand up and fight for my home that these
hmm
people are taking away from me piece by
Right.
piece. And I think they have the right to do that.
Yeah.
And they weren't necessarily, all the people that were there were not going there to shoot up the square and kill Imperials. That
Right.
was just, the Gorman front that we've seen. They had people from all over the city. And keep
hmm
in mind that that was just the capital. I can't
Yeah.
imagine what the Empire is going to do after they finished what they did and what we saw them do to the rest of the cities in Gorman.
Oh yeah. Like as Partagaz says, there's not going to be much for them to call home after everything's said and done, which is just such a scary thought. And just the way that he doesn't even think twice about being like, well, these people are just going to have to be killed, and everyone's going to have to die, and there's
I
going to be no
never
home for them.
I never even thought that they were gonna attempt to find an alternative fuel source.
Right.
It was like if we stumble upon one, maybe, but we found the
hmm
perfect one, and we have all the resources to just take this planet. It's just a matter of when we can do
hmm
it. It
Yeah.
was just so unfortunate because we all knew it was gonna happen. We knew the Gorman Massacre was gonna be a thing, but like
hmm
nothing could have prepared me to watch it happen.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It actually was like, I felt like I was being held at gunpoint watching like this whole Gorman massacre play out. Like the adrenaline, the anger, the fucking
Mhm.
anger, seeing that dumbass sniper shoot one of his own so that, a whole riot would start and people start shooting at each other. And you see them literally open fire on innocent civilians, unarmed. Obviously, civilians start firing back, but before that even happens, it's just unarmed people dying. That guy that's standing at the top, just
Waving a
protesting,
flag.
waving a flag, shot down. Like, oh, it just is so fucking angry. Like, I was so angry watching it. It makes you want to get up and fight. I want to throw a fucking brick at a stormtrooper's head so
Right. Yeah, and I think the worst part about it was the Empire not only was willing to kill innocent Gormans, they
bad.
were willing to kill innocent soldiers under their command because
Literally.
Captain, what was his name? Cato.
Hmm.
Literally, he if you didn't put this together, it seems like he picked these groups that were inept and new because
Hmm.
they were literally just, "Oh, it'll be fine if they die because we don't really need them." Like, they're not
Right.
trained super well, they're, like, super low level cadets, and we
Hmm.
saw that, and the
Yeah.
fear that they had, and literally the Empire had snipers ready to shoot one of them, and of
Hmm.
course they knew because they were so inexperienced as their captain or whoever put it, he was like, "They're green, like, are you sure you want them in the riot squad?" And he's like,
Right.
"Yep, send them out in the middle of the crowd." And
Yep.
because they're not trained and they haven't been in these experiences before, as soon as something goes bad, they're just going to start shooting. And
Exactly.
all I made me think of is cops.
Yep.
All it made
It
me
was.
think of is cops. I was like, "Oh my god, we have been through this before in our world. There was so much that
Hmm.
we had been through." And I'm just like, if you could be empathetic to the
Hmm.
Gorman people,
Right.
you should be able to have empathy for marginalized groups in the real world because as
Yeah.
tragic as this was, the Gormans are made up people. Sure, they
Yeah.
represent different groups in our world, but if you
Hmm.
can't have that same empathy for them or want to fight for their rights as well,
Right.
you need to rethink your life.
100%. I mean, I think that's why watching those scenes are so hard to watch. It's because you can see the parallels between the real world,
Mhm.
between what's happening in Palestine, between even some of the riots that have broken out in recent years in America. Just the scary thought of, oh my God, what could happen here? I mean, think back to 2020, the
The
Black Lives Matter
I was
protests,
That's
and
exactly what it made me think about.
right, like, remember them bringing out the fucking National Guard for these protests, and there were
Mhm.
so many cases where the police force were, starting riots or starting, violence, and then in the end they blame it on the
The peaceful
protesters, saying they're
protesters.
violent and everything. Even some, people that were clearly on the right side of thing, or the right wing side of things, inciting violence, causing some of that destruction, looting, and things like that, so that it looked like the peaceful
Exactly.
protesters were to blame. It's the same exact things we see carried out here. And it was
Mhm.
just, like I said, that was why it's so hard to watch, because you can just draw the parallels to the real world here.
I think what made my adrenaline, because at first it was adrenaline for me, but
Hmm.
then when I realized not only were the Imperials like going to start shooting on anyone, that they were
Hmm.
trapping them in the square
Yep.
to literally kill and genocide them, as Mon
Hmm.
Mothma put it. It just, like, made my heart sink, and,
Hmm.
like, even watching it, I was like, "I don't even wanna watch this." That long shot after Enza, Ryland's daughter, gets shot on just her, like,
Hmm.
dead face,
Right.
and we just have to stare at it for that awkwardly long time, it's so uncomfortable, but, I
Yeah.
mean, this goes back to the first arc with Bix's SA, like,
Uh-huh.
it's so uncomfortable, but we can't ignore it when it's right in front of us. Like, it
Exactly.
forces you to acknowledge what is happening and question why it's happening. Like, it makes you
Hmm.
question things, and that's what people are so afraid of.
Yeah, 100%. And you can put yourself in the character's shoes here. Like, think of the poor character. I obviously don't know his name, but he was there hiding behind one of the little wall structures. He
Oh,
had his gun. He
yeah.
calls them bastards.
Mhm.
That was someone who was clearly not meant to be fighting. Someone who clearly was not meant to be there. But he has
That
no
would've been me
choice.
struggling.
Literally, me too, but, he has no choice, and
Yeah.
that's the tragic part of it all. He has to fight for his home, or else
Mhm.
he's just going to die without trying, and God, it just felt, so tragic. I mean, we see, like, someone like Cassian there, or, like, some of the rebels, like, they're more, ready to fight and things like that, so you're
As
less
much as they
scared for
can
them.
be.
Right, but just, like, seeing civilians that just aren't ready, or just, the rebel cell was not ready at all for this attack. Even if the Empire never planned it, it still probably would have been a fucking tragedy. They weren't ready for this type of thing, and the Empire knows that. They took advantage of Ghorman for that reason.
Exactly. And on top of the fact, like, honestly, they did a lot better than I thought they were going to do, holding off the Imperials
Very
and as
true.
many like kills as they got. But when
Yeah.
the KX droids came out, it was
Yeah.
completely over. Watching those droids throw people,
Mm-hmm. Oh my god.
just
That.
kicking the barricade, I
Yeah.
was like, oh
Oh
my
my.
God, terrifying.
Yeah, it felt very real. And they did that thing that they did in Rogue One where they kept the cameras on the ground. So like you see from like an up angle,
Oh, yeah,
just bodies fucking flying in the air. And it's just I'm getting angry thinking about it. Just
I
fucking
know.
tragedy everywhere. If you're enjoying our discussion of Andor Season 2 Arc 3, we just wanted to remind everyone that we're building a little rebellion of our own. And just like the rebels on Yavin, we could all join together if you subscribe to This Is The Wayseekers on YouTube.
Whether you enjoy the more serious and political nature of Andor or the connections to the larger Star Wars galaxy, we've been covering it all each week on the podcast, and you don't want to miss out on our Andor series finale discussion next week.
So join the Rebel Alliance and subscribe to This Is The Wayseekers on YouTube so you never miss out on what we're covering.
Because rebellions are built on community. Well, one thing that I really loved is that, um, I guess this was before, but had to point it out. The bellhop saying to Cassian, "Rebellions are built on
Yes.
hope." That callback to Rogue One, I
Hmm.
love that. And then he ended up sacrificing his life by
Yeah.
tossing that grenade.
That character, I really liked him. I immediately knew that he was the same bellhop that Cassian met in the previous arc, and
Yeah, and he knew it
I,
was Cassian too.
and we know like a little bit of his backstory there with his dad being part of the first Gorman massacre, or what do they call it,
The Tarkin massacre.
The Tarkin massacre. Right, right, right. And so it makes sense that that character would be ready to fight against the Empire, and just he puts it all on the line for Cassian. He doesn't even know what he's there for or anything like that, but he knows
Exactly.
that it's against the Empire, and that they need any chance they can. As he says, rebellions are built on hope. That hope that whatever Cassian's doing here is for the better of this galaxy, for the better of Gorman. And thank God Cassian was there, because if not, it would have been way worse.
Yeah, and I also like the idea of thinking of no active rebellion is like too small. Like, yeah, we saw his big grand active rebellion with the grenade, but even earlier
Mhm.
in the episode, just removing Cassian's name from the check-in list, like
Mhm.
that little small active rebellion,
Yeah.
like it's just really admirable to watch this
Yeah.
happen.
100%. And it's exactly what Nemec said in his manifesto. Every single little thing is one more crack in the Empire, and eventually it's all just going to bust wide open and come rushing out. And that is what we see, obviously, in A New Hope. And I could not help but think during this arc, I'm like, maybe I need to put on A New Hope and remind myself that this all ends in a good thing here with the Death Star
Right.
exploding, because seeing this happen now, all this tragedy and trauma happening, Jesus Christ. Star Wars has never been darker, I don't think.
No, no, I had to. I was actually thinking to myself, probably because we just saw that George Lucas was at the Met Gala, but I was like, I wonder if he ever expected to see the Empire at this level.
Right.
We always like he always made it a point to put the politics in Star Wars and show the
Mhm.
Empire as a fascist regime. But I wonder if he ever thought that we'd actually get to see them like at their
Mhm.
height, which is
Right.
crazy. We're so used to ooh Sith evil, Force lightning. Like no,
Mhm.
this is just murdering innocent people. Um, Something I want to talk about too, though, is speaking of the Empire, the Empire side, what Dedra was going through this whole time,
Mhm.
because Homegirl was going through it, and so was Syril, and they had a intense confrontation
That
even
was
before like everything started, and then everything that fell out after.
right. It was intense, and it was Cyril was so Cyril in this episode, because
So
it's like,
incel.
yes, because you start to root for him here when he starts to realize everything that's gone wrong. He's being used. It's exactly what we said in the last episode of the podcast. Like, first of all, we're very vindicated here. But then the way he takes it out on Dedra, it's so Syril where it's like,
Yeah.
oh my god, what are you fucking doing? Strangling her and everything, and obviously fuck Dedra. But it's still just, seeing a man strangle a woman, especially his significant other, I mean, it is still
Yeah.
domestic violence. Like it's still
Yeah.
him abusing her, and yeah, he may be justified, but that's like the complexity of Cyril Karn is
Well,
there's
and
just no good or bad with him. Like it's just he's
yeah.
just Cyril, just fucking crazy.
Well, and the worst part about it too is like knowing with Dedra, even just her trauma back to Ferrix,
Oh yeah.
when he starts like assaulting her, she
Hmm.
completely shuts down. All her
Hmm.
power is gone in that moment. And it's like so scary to see. And once again, that's another real life thing that happens.
Yeah.
Mentioning domestic violence, like that's literally what it was. It was just so uncomfortable, but that's another thing that we have to confront. It's a thing that's real.
Yes, 100%. I mean, think about what's going on in her head when, like you said, the trauma that she experienced on Ferrix, the trauma she deserved, but trauma nonetheless that she probably has PTSD from. The one man that saved her is now inflicting that same violence on her. Just
Yeah.
crazy. And you can almost see Dedra like realizing as well, like, oh wow, this is kind of too far. Like Cyril starts asking these questions, and does she even really know the answer? I mean, she knows obviously more than Cyril does about what the mission is, but I don't even think Dedra knows about the Death Star. Like she doesn't really
No.
know the bigger picture at
Mm-mm.
all. It's just at the end of the day the same thing as Cyril, where the mindset is for the betterment of the empire. The
Yeah.
empire is in the right no matter what. They're very loyal to the empire.
And I thought she was going to get out of that at the end and realize like she made a horrible decision, but it seems
Hmm.
like she is just like, well, this
Hmm.
is my life.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah, 100%. And with Cyril, you almost kind of forget with this season how violent he actually was until you see it all,
oh,
come right back. I almost forgot that he had that inside him because when
I
he
completely
confronts
forgot.
Cassian, whew, him and Cassian's fight, very brutal, very insane. And, it's such a Star Wars thing to do to like focus on this big battle or like I don't even know if you can call the Ghorman Massacre a battle. Let's call it a massacre, a genocide. That's what it was. But then, focusing in on just two characters that are,
Like that intimate
a part
fight.
of it. Exactly. It's very, Empire Strikes Back, seeing the Empire and Rebellion fight and then focusing in on Luke versus Vader. It's
Yeah.
what we see here. These two characters crossing paths that, we've followed them separately. We've followed Cyril and his obsession with Cassian Andor, and that's why that line of Cassian being like, "Who are you?" Like you feel that within Cyril, and part of me wonders if when he heard that he realized like his obsession was insane, that the Empire has caused him to be so obsessive, and that's why he lowers his gun. Like, was there a possibility where he was, going to be like, "Oh, you're right, fuck this, let me join the empire or the rebellion, leave the empire," but it's too late. He's dead. His actions, have caused him to be dead at this point, and so there is no future for his character no matter what.
I think in that moment, Cyril does kind of question like, why am I doing this? Why am I here? He kind of remembers everything that's going on. But like
Hmm.
we said, it's too late. He's in too deep.
Right.
And he's got the gun in his hand. Cassian is defenseless. And
Hmm.
honestly, it wasn't even for me like a moment of, oh, I know Cassian survives to Rogue One. It was like, oh my
Hmm.
God, remember Cassian survives to Rogue One. Like he's going to be
Right.
okay. Like having to remind myself because I'm like, he might die in this moment.
Hmm.
Um, but I love that Rylance was the one to get the final blow, get
Yeah.
his just desserts on Cyril, especially after Cyril was shoving that old man up against a concrete wall.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's like a dressmaker. He's not a
Hmm.
big guy. We
Right.
got two fucking twinks fighting each other, except one's like 55 and Cyril's like maybe 35. Um like
Still strong though, like,
yes, he's a
Jesus Christ.
lightweight category, like, but he can beat your fucking ass, clearly. I was
Right.
like, "Ooh, him doing fight
Right.
choreography."
him and Cassian, they might as well have went 12 rounds. Like Jesus
Honestly,
Christ.
and they're both kinda lightweights, which is
Right.
so hilarious. Because Cassian, he's toned. I feel like he's got
Mhm.
a little more muscle, but I'm like, they're not big guys, but
Mhm.
they were shoving the fuck out of each other. I guess when your adrenaline's running, they say you could pick up a car, so
Yeah, 100%. I really did like their fight though. It felt very brutal and real. And fighting in Star
raw.
Wars, it's not anything new, but like Andor takes things from Star Wars and makes it raw, like you said. Like, I actually let's go back to the beginning here because we kind of skipped over this moment of Cassian and the
Mhm.
healer, where Cassian,
Oh,
is
yeah.
told by this healer that he basically has a purpose, that he's a messenger of sorts with a destiny. And that is such an interesting, scene for us as the viewers that know what happens in Rogue One, because it kind of like canonizes the, how would you call it, the way we're watching this, knowing his fate. It like canonizes the fact that we know. I'm trying so hard to figure out how to word this. Like,
I feel like it's a it's almost like the Jedi have a chosen one who's gonna
mhm.
bring balance. He's like the rebellion's chosen one.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%, but it like what I'm saying is we as the viewers know Cassian's destiny, and it's like kind of canonizing that way of watching it, where it's like or it's like a
Which
meta reference, I guess, to the fact that we know Cassian's destiny. Someone being like, you do have a destiny and you are a messenger, which we know like he is the one that ends up delivering the Death Star plan. So he is essentially a, messenger, which I thought was so interesting. And Andor never touches on the Force, so seeing
yeah,
this,
it
very
on
cool.
it's so funny because I love the fantasy, but
Mhm.
watching this lady, I was like, "This is kinda goofy." I'm very surprised that Tony Gilroy has this goofy force healer lady in here trying to be like, "You're a messenger." It's like it
Yeah.
was it was very bizarre, and I was curious as to where it was kinda going.
Mhm.
But I agree. I love the fact that she's like, "You're a harbinger. You're gonna like bring forth
Mhm.
some great thing. Like you're going to provide a message." And
Mhm.
it's not, if we think about it, like it's not just to someone, it's like to the galaxy. Like
Right.
that the rebellion can succeed, the empire can be stopped.
Mhm.
Like so I mean, I think she was right.
Yeah.
Despite what Marva thought, she wasn't into the Force healers. Um,
Mhm.
and despite Cassian, the Force healer lady was right.
Yeah.
We have Mon Mothma at home.
Yeah, 100%. I thought it was just a really cool way to incorporate the Force into this story, because it makes sense that like Cassian is a denier of sorts, and
Yeah.
it's always interesting for us as the viewers to see that because we see Luke versus Vader, we see
Mhm.
Anakin fall to the dark side in this huge like cosmic feeling way. So it is interesting to see it on a smaller scale in this story, and I really liked the way they incorporated it. It felt very natural and raw, and I couldn't help but think of my one of my favorite characters after Tales of the Empire, Barriss Offee, who's now a healer, a Force healer. You know,
Well, I thought of Ventress in the Bad Batch being a harbinger of some kind of
mm,
news. So
yeah,
shout out
but
Tails.
she's not a healer though. She's not a healer, but
She is not, but Force users just unlock powers now, so she could be in the future. Who knows if they need her to
mhm,
be? Um,
100%. But yeah, it was also another cool way to kind of highlight Bix's decision or foreshadow Bix's decision in the
yeah.
end. There's kind
Mhm.
of a lot of different things in these episodes that lead to Bix's decision, like her conversation with Vel, and then this moment, kind of learning Cassian has a purpose. And I know the healer says to her, maybe you're that purpose that he needs, but it's so
Right.
clear that she's not, unfortunately. Like that's the tragedy of the whole thing is we know how it ends. We
Well,
know that the them living a life together will never happen, and that's tragic.
I mean, Bix was his purpose because she had to make the decision for
Mhm.
them on what
Right.
was more important in the like current time frame. So I
Yeah.
think she still kind of was the purpose, just not in the way that she may have thought at the
True.
time. She definitely had some time to think about it while Cassian was gone.
Mhm.
But yeah,
But the
that was
healer
some
like explains it as like there's a place he needs to be, and maybe that place is with you, but like That's not it.
But maybe, yeah, that's true. It might be with you, but that doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily mean right now.
Right, exactly. And that's again the tragedy of the whole thing. Star Wars in their tragedy
Oh my
in the
god.
same week too, because we obviously know that Ventress is no longer able to be in contact with Quinlan Voss, her heart's
Don't
desire.
don't get me started. Don't get me
Star
started.
Wars and their forbidden love stories. Very
And
tragic.
well, yeah, let's not forget. On top of the Gorman Massacre, yeah, we had a lot of love tragedy this week too. Um, yeah, the Force Lady was kind of odd, but I feel like I need to go back and rewatch those parts because I think it took me
Mhm,
out a little bit, and I was just like, "What? What are
mm.
we doing? Why do we have this Force Lady here?"
Right,
It
exactly.
was bizarre, but maybe we'll see maybe we'll see something else play into that in the finale arc, because
Yeah.
I think it'd be nice to see kind of a follow-up of that, like maybe Cassian turns around and decides to go to this lady in the future for something before obviously Rogue One.
I mean, maybe, but I feel like the fulfillment of that scene has already come. By knowing Cassian's fate
Yeah.
in the end, she's correct. She's right, and I feel like, at least for me, that's really the only follow-up I need, is that, like,
Yeah.
she
No,
was correct in the end.
I mean I agree. That's
Mhm.
true. I just think it'd be nice to see him be more open to it.
True, but he is still skeptical of the whole Force thing in Rogue One when he sees Chirrut Imwe, so
Yeah,
sorry to
true.
sorry to kill your, hopes and dreams.
I've got a new hope.
Right. But speaking of killing hopes and dreams, let's get back to the end of this Gorman massacre. Whew, that was a dark way to transition into that. I didn't know I had that in me, but
I can't remember what's Wilman's new girlfriend's name. Do you remember?
no, I don't.
I'm the name person. I
Unfortunately.
don't know why I asked you. Uh, I should have that in my notes. But her speech at the end as she's on the comms, just like calling out for help, was
Mhm,
so emotional. And I really loved the lines: "The Empire built this fire. They made this fire and led us to the slaughter. Now they
mhm,
expect us to die without knowing why." And I
mhm,
think of so many different people who have been killed or slaughtered or genocided or massacred,
mhm.
and
And they
they
don't
didn't
even know
even know
why.
why, and
Mhm.
maybe they weren't even a part of any of the reason, quote
Exactly.
unquote, why,
Mhm. And
but
they're
they're
not.
killed anyway.
The Gorman people had no control over the fact that they have this valuable rock calcite in the core of their planet. Like,
That they don't
they
even
had no
utilize.
control.
They just want to
Exactly.
make their dresses
Exactly.
or clothes.
That's the tragedy of it all, just the community vibes of everything that we've been following these last 5
And then they
episodes.
were singing the song, and I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I can't handle this."
Mhm, and then boom, just pow, 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 like, fuck, but I really did like that scene at the end there with the whole radio station, and I was a little worried because obviously at the end of whatever she's saying, it blows up, you hear it over the
Yeah,
intercom and you hear the attack, which leads
and
to
then like
Woman's like leg
ah.
injury. Yeah, I was scared that that was it, that's the Wilman's death. And with the way Andor's been going, I was like, we're not going to get an official confirmation that he died, like that was the confirmation.
Well,
So
and the thing
I was
is
happy to see
too,
him again.
clearly there's more to his story though, because
Hmm.
he's not in Rogue One, so that could have
Yeah,
been his death, no problem. But he makes
right.
it to Yavin. I really thought
Hmm.
he was dead. When he said he had to go back for her, I was like, stupid
No.
mistake. You're
Yep.
dead.
Hmm.
Bye.
Right. And it's tragic, but interesting how even after all this heartbreak he's went through, losing his dad, losing his, last girlfriend or, romantic interest, and now still going back for
The
her, like,
trauma. The
mhm,
trauma. He
but it
couldn't go
doesn't
back for the last
change.
one.
Exactly. But it doesn't, like, all this doesn't change who he is as a person. Like, he's still hopeful. He's still,
Yeah.
going to go back and try to save these people instead of, adopting the mindset that Bix has, which I don't think is necessarily like a bad thing, but Bix has that mindset of like, we're probably going to lose everything and we can't control losing everything. So, you know, just like she made the decision in the end to never see Cassian, like she's kind of come to terms that that was going to happen. I feel like Wilman still has that like young, I
He's a
guess,
fighter.
spirit fighter. Yes, exactly. It's very
which is,
interesting seeing the different perspectives of rebellion and
well,
rebellious characters.
speaking of, after that mission, or
Mhm.
even after that mission, Cassian's like, "This is it.
Mhm.
I'm done. This is my last act for the rebellion. I can't do
Mhm.
this anymore."
Yeah.
And I was surprised, even going into episode 9,
Mhm.
that he was still, even after the Ghorman Massacre, what he survived that so many other people did not, what he
Right.
saw, the atrocities,
Mhm.
he's still like, "Yep, not for me anymore. Can't do this. I've done enough."
Yeah.
Like, I was like, "Sir."
Right.
After episode 8, I wrote in my notes, I was like,
And
"This is clearly what's gonna push Cassian to be the leader he needs to be."
nope.
And then
And Clay even calls that out, like, "Seriously, dude? After everything? Like,
she's like,
everything you've seen, you'd think that you'd be the number 1 fighter."
I'm pretty sure she says something to the effect of like, "Oh, what would you say to the Gorman senator
Mhm.
who, like, has to now deal with
Right.
this? Think about the
Mhm.
Gorman people. They don't have
Mhm.
a choice."
Yeah. And it's interesting that the thing that really made Cassian the leader he is having nothing else but the rebellion. Because once Bix leaves him, that's it. That's
Well,
he has
he
nothing else.
finds a new companion, but we'll get to him later.
I he finds a new compa Oh, you're talking about K2SO. That's right. I thought you
Yes.
were talking about Jin. I was like, I don't think that
My name
is
is not
how
my name is not Crystal Kyber. I do
I was
not
about
ship
to
Jin and
say.
Cassian.
I'd be
Sorry,
very
girl.
interested to see how a Jin Cassian shipper is interpreting this season of Andor
They're happy. They're
because
loving it. They
you
said, "Bix said
think
peace out."
I've been seeing I mean, I guess, but at the same time, it kind of, recontextualizes everything to the point where I feel like when we get to Rogue One and Cassian is like all lovey-dovey with Jin, he's probably imagining it's Bix. That's the true love of his life.
It's the tragedy of Han and Kira all over again.
Very true. Very true. That it has to end. Yeah. I wonder what's going to happen is that the end of Bix there? Are we going to see her die? Cuz
I don't.
I almost feel like cuz Cassian accepts his death in Rogue One.
Mhm.
And the way Andor's been going, I was like, okay, Bix is going to die and then he's going to
Yeah.
kind of find peace in dying by being like I get to reunite with Bix. But
Well,
if Bix doesn't die, then
yeah,
how?
and it makes it so sad that she's like, "We'll find each other when this is over." Yeah, in death.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but we don't know. Like, is Bix going to come back? Is that the end of her? We don't know. We really
S
don't.
Surprise, Bix is in one of the ships in The Rise of Skywalker. She's in the quad jumper.
That's sad though. I want her to reunite with Cassian. Well, I don't want her to die, but like, it's this is the complex issues of knowing the end.
And the complexity of Andor as a series. Nobody gets to be happy.
Yeah, 100%. But I think we should move into the Mon Mothma side of things here with
Woo
episode
woo.
9. Whew, like very, very intense. And I'm glad that we kind of got to see this final episode um, after the whole Gorman massacre because it still felt
Yes.
like a win at the end. Mon Mothma gets to escape, and we know that that leads to her leading the rebellion on
Well,
Yavin.
and it wasn't without peril either, or
Hmm.
like tense moments. Like,
Hmm.
I was scared for my girl.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's so great about Andor is even knowing these characters' fate, it never takes away the intensity. It never takes away the adrenaline of like,
I
oh my
know.
God, like what's gonna happen to Mon Mothma here? You know.
Exactly. Well, and the worst part about it, I know I keep bringing up Mask of Fear in all these episodes, but like, it confirms she takes anxiety medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And it confirms that she has like horrible trauma from
Mm-hmm.
her first arrest just post like Order 66 delegation of 2000.
Mm-hmm.
So the thought of this woman putting everything on the line and then
Yeah.
having to flee the capital and go into
Mm-hmm.
hiding in a safe house, like she
Yeah.
doesn't even know where she's going to go. She's just like, hopefully somebody can get me somewhere where I'll be okay. On
Mm-hmm.
top of the fact that, like, if she gets arrested, she will be tortured again
Mm-hmm.
and probably way worse than the first time. And
Mm-hmm.
everything
Yeah.
is out.
Probably killed too, because they're not gonna want Mon Mothma out there
No,
ever again. So
they'll
yeah,
kill her after they get
everything.
all the information they need from her.
Yeah, 100%. Everything was on the line, and this happens a few times in this season of Andor, where it's like everything that has gotten them to this point could just be null if it doesn't work out. This one small thing, if they do not get Mon Mothma out of the Senate building, it's all over. It doesn't matter. Like, ugh.
I just hear in my head Luthen's monologue in season 1 of him just going, "Everything!"
And I mean, he that his monologue here is definitely shown, like when he says he's forced to use the tools of his enemy, the way he kind of has to weaponize Mon's fear of him. Like when Mon Mothma's like, I'm more scared of you than anything. Instead of stepping back and being like, oh, I'm scary, he has to be like, the code name is I have friends everywhere. Like he weaponizes her fear against her, and obviously it has to happen. It's like you know, otherwise Mon Mothma would not have listened to him and um, gone his way. But it's just he's forced to use the tools of his enemy.
So, I wanna take it back to the beginning to the conversation between Mon and Bale
Hmm.
prior to, like, the speech.
Right.
Bale says Mon's like, "We both have to go together. I have to say the speech, and then we gotta go." He's
Hmm.
like, "I have to sit here and stall." They
Right.
played the same music behind them that they played from the previous arc when Rylance was talking about the Tarkin massacre. Something
Mm,
about that piece makes me emotional. I
right.
started crying at Mon and Bale standing outside trying to plan like what they're gonna do. I'm
Hmm.
I ride hard for this woman.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, and I was like, Benjamin Bratt is Bail Organa now,
Hmm.
and I accept him, and I'm really sad that he has to stay.
Yeah.
But what did you think about Bale having to like stay behind? I mean, obviously we'll see him in a year in Yavin because it'll be
Mhm.
literally in a week. But
I mean, it's something I didn't even really consider, but when you think about his role in Rogue One and even his role off screen in A New Hope, like he still has to be the king of Alderaan. Like he still has to, keep
King
up this public
Consort,
image. Yeah,
King Consort.
king consort of Alderaan. He still has to keep up this public image of being a senator, an imperial senator. Like Mon Mothma says, like you'll be a puppet basically for the empire going forward if you do this. Because that's the thing too, is he was the one that passed the mic to her. So
Yeah,
regardless, I'm sure that he is under scrutiny as
I thought
well.
about that.
And I
I
mean,
thought
we even
about
see it
that.
play out because they replace one of his, aides with a freaking ISB person, an ISB agent.
Can we talk about that? They were trying to. I was like, are they trying to assassinate Mon? Like,
Right. They
because
were 100%.
that was stressing me out. And when I saw
Mhm.
that lady come on the screen, I was like, I've seen this lady before, and I don't like her. Why not? Because in the trailers there was the shot of her like
Uh,
pointing the gun around, and I
and the
was
gun,
like,
yeah. Yep.
and then it clicked in my head. I was like, oh god, she's gonna
Mhm.
have the gun.
I was
Ugh, or
surprised
I'm
that she made
sorry,
a big scene in that moment of,
right?
I thought that she was just gonna try to get Mon there, and then a big fight would break out in the actual Gate 9, but
And you know
that was
what?
not her plan.
That was supposedly from our good friend Lonnie in the ISB. What was that all about,
Mm.
Lonnie?
I actually didn't even realize that we didn't even see Lonnie. I thought that he was going to. I'm sure in the next arc or something he'll have a big moment, but
But but they said that that lady that was going to
mm.
kill Mon was like from Lieutenant Young's council or whatever, something. So
Well,
Lonnie somehow was involved with her being there, which I thought was a little bizarre.
was he involved with her being there, or does she just work under him, which like he's still technically an imperial?
Okay,
Like even though he's not a real imperial, he still
I
has
get
to have people working under him, real
I guess
imperials.
that's true, or an operative, maybe that's the word that
Hmm.
they use. So yeah, okay,
Yeah,
I'll allow it.
yeah. I doubt that after everything, Lonnie's now betrayed the empire or the rebellion.
Yeah, especially the way he was cutting up with um Dedra's ex-twink guy last week. They were throwing back shots and shit. They're having a good
Yeah.
old time.
Oh,
Speaking of
100%.
people from the past, we got Justice for Tay, which I
Mhm.
felt very validated,
Mhm.
especially after we brought up last week. We were like, "What happened to him?" We thought Mon was
Yeah.
going to say something. She never did. She brought it up this week.
Mhm. But I almost I am I crazy to say, or am I selfish to say it wasn't a no? I
Yeah,
mean, obviously we got the confirmation that he died, but I needed her to be upset at Luthen for that.
you know what that reminds me of?
What?
When she smashed that listening device in her office, I
Mm.
was like, "I have never seen this woman so angry or violent."
Mm-hmm.
Literally, I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh!" Like, the way
Yeah.
she bam! I
She
was like,
was
"Mon is pissed."
she
She
was
was
pissed.
her adrenaline was pumping and her anxiety. She's probably having
100%.
an anxiety attack giving that speech.
But she seemed so strong throughout all of it. That speech was powerful, and just I loved seeing the Empire trying to shut it down, and those two people stopping the guy from shutting it down, and
Yeah.
the Empire panicking during her speech. I love it because everything she said is 100% accurate. We as the viewer know that, and I hope that, I mean, obviously we see the entire Senate, you know, erupt in just anger, but I'm hoping that there was at least a few pods out there that were like, she's saying what
Well,
we're all thinking.
I thought to myself, I know Senator Chuchi is somewhere smiling
Yep.
in her pod.
Hmm.
Um, I think my favorite lines from the speech was the difference between what is said and what is known to be true has become an abyss. Of
Hmm.
all the things at risk, the loss of an objective reality is perhaps the most dangerous. The death
Hmm.
of truth is the ultimate victory of evil.
Yeah, very.
Never truer words have not been spoken. I wish we had more people speaking them in our galaxy.
100%, 100%. The courage of actually calling the Gorman massacre a genocide. I mean, it's something that I don't think has any Democratic senator or House representative come out and say that the conflict in the Middle East, as they like to put it, is actually a genocide of the Palestinian people. I don't
And
think one
that
has.
no, but they do love to say that Israel has the right to defend itself. From what?
Exactly.
All the people they've killed?
Exactly. I saw this hilarious interview, or just a piece of it, where this person tried to was interviewing Tony Gilroy, the writer and creator of Andor, and basically was like, "I feel like Mon Mothma is a great parallel to Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House," and Tony Gilroy was like, "She was absolutely not on my mind when I was writing Senator Mon Mothma, who actually put shit into action."
And puts
Yeah,
her life on the line
yeah. Mon
for
Mothma is stronger than any U.S. senator,
I know,
like,
I'm like,
and
"Genevieve
all of them
O'Reilly, I
combined.
need you to put on one of those dresses and come over to the
Mhm.
US and give that speech at a rally, please, because 'cause
Literally.
I'll be like, vote Mon Mothma."
Mhm. And I did like that the speech, it was very focused on kind of like what you brought up in those lines there, the death of truth, and how, with nobody in the galaxy really knowing the actual truth of what happened, there's so many different stories of what took place on Gorman. There's
Mhm.
just chaos. It's just, the death of truth makes it all gone. I almost think back, almost thought about the fact that, like, what Mon Mothma did, I actually don't think could happen in the US. Because if a senator came and said to, the entire House of Representatives in a big speech that everybody in America was watching, that the genocide in Gaza is a genocide, how much would that actually do? Because I feel like the death of truth is so bad in America that people would just turn around and be like, she's lying. Like,
Oh,
okay. Okay.
they do it every day.
Exactly.
The news does it every day.
So the death of truth, it's like almost, I don't want to say it's at a point of no return in America, but it's bad. It's
No,
bad.
but I'd love to see the radical left be a little more on the radical side.
Yeah,
That phrase
100%.
that gets thrown around so much.
Mm-hmm.
N Oh my god.
Yeah. But Andor has all these connections to real world politics and parallels that I think are important to talk about. But I want
Mhm.
to move into something a little more fun here. Connections to my favorite Star Wars TV show, Star Wars Rebels.
Yeah.
The way that they interwove the whole season 3 story with Mon Mothma into this
Yep.
was so good, so intricately detailed. Like, oh, I loved it. So basically, they explained that she'd be taken to Yavin by Squadron in a way to rewrite the story so that it looked like an organized rebel force actually took Mon Mothma in, so people would be like, oh, they're organized, like they got
Yeah.
shit going on here. And
Mhm.
I loved that because it's just it's just what Tony Gilroy's been doing this entire time with the canon of Star Wars, is just writing it into things. He could have easily been like, what happens there's not really canon. He could have pulled a
Yeah.
Dave Filoni on Dave Filoni and been like, eh, the speech Mon Mothma gave is nowhere near as powerful as the ones that I'm going to write for her.
Yeah.
But no, instead they put more focus on her Imperial Senate speech instead of her more galactic wide speech that we see in Rebels, and literally gave an excuse for someone else to be bringing her to Yavin. So good, so good. I love
Literally.
Rebels. And it is funny though, like you have to, the season 3 of Rebels and the third arc of season 2 of Andor, they go hand in hand, but like one of them has a really graphic genocide going on, and then the other is like this cartoonish animation.
Flying through a nebula. Flying through a nebula, and Mon Mothma and an astromech have to unhook their
Yep.
ship from another one. Like,
Hmm.
it's so funny. I was like, Mon was going through it. She even was like, got some scissors and cut her hair on the way there. She was like, I
Hmm.
need to change.
Yeah. Her assistant, what's his name?
Erskine.
Erskine, yeah, he has to change into a whole, rebel get up,
Yeah.
helmet and all. So something happened off screen there. But I think that because when Mon Mothma like drops the blue,
Yeah.
that was a really cool moment of like, okay, she's like going to become the fully dressed in white Mon Mothma that we've
Yeah.
seen so far.
Well,
Very
and like
symbolic moment.
the blue coat, as we've kind of come to see, that's like her Senate coat.
Hmm.
Like, not only was she shedding the coat,
Hmm. Her
like,
Senate
but
coat, yeah,
she was shedding that part of her life.
yeah.
We know she resigns from the Senate, like, and
Hmm.
announces it to the galaxy. Not like they
Hmm.
would have had her back if she wanted to be,
Right.
but she's like, I resigned, and I'm here to let you know I'm gonna fight on the front lines, like, with you. I'm
Hmm.
stepping out into the galaxy, and I love those tie-ins as well. Just even like the Gold Squadron name drop, I was like,
Yeah.
ooh.
I
Uh,
could not help but wonder where Perrin fits into this entire equation. Does
I
he know
know.
about everything? Did he know beforehand? Did he find out from watching on TV? Like,
Pro-
oh, guess that's the end of her.
Well, like, if Perrin watches the news, sure. But it's the way they made it seem, it seems that Mon stayed in the Senate building, or like in her Senate office, like, all night. So
Right.
she never went home.
Yeah.
So I don't know what Perrin was doing, but I'd love to know what his reaction was. And I'm
Yeah.
curious if we're even gonna see Mon in this last arc mention anything about her daughter or
Right.
her husband,
Yeah.
because she had no problem ditching them.
Yeah. I think it's just that's it for them. We
Yeah,
just
I think
assume
so
she cut
too.
contact,
And
which
honestly, good for her.
yeah, and it works better than her like saying goodbye because like at the end of the day, they're probably like the Empire is probably immediately going to go to Perrin to question
Oh,
him.
for sure. But
And
he's
it's
got so
way
many
better for
friends,
him.
I'm sure he'll be fine.
Yeah, 100%. And it's way better for him to not know where she went, because they are going to question him. So,
Yeah, that's so true.
hmm
I'm glad this arc though ended on a happy note.
yeah,
Like a
we got
very
the birth
happy
of
note.
K2. Yeah, birth of K2SO. I was interested in the way they went about it, with Sam crashing into the K2 unit, and no, no, Sam, that does not absolve you of your crimes of killing Cinta. I
I
don't
know,
forgive you
right?
just because you saved Cassian from getting crushed by a KX droid, but
Yeah, and at first I was like, why does Cassie even want that droid? Then I was like, oh, it's an experimental, like, Imperial thing. Like,
hmm
there's probably intel on it. That makes sense
hmm
that he'd want to grab it. But I
yeah,
was like, that's gonna be K2SO. It's the droid he's grabbing for some random reason.
Yeah. Well, also, like, I'm sure in his mind he was like, "We'll repurpose it," because that is something the rebels do. I mean, think of
Yeah,
like
they have to.
Sabine's. Yeah, think of like Sabine's painted Tie Fighter that she uses. Like, they got to use the weapons of their enemy, sometimes literally instead of figuratively.
I was gonna say, who knew Luthen Rail was still going strong all those years for the rebellion? You know that scene in the trailer of him like in front of like a coffee pot or something, looking all sad and depressed.
I
It's
think,
just such
yeah,
like a quick little scene. I'm like, are we gonna see him just like alone on Coruscant watching the news now? Because like in this last arc, like what is he gonna be doing? Because it
I
doesn't
think
seem like
so.
he's gonna die either.
Because there's another shot in one of the trailers of Clea and Cassian in the safe house apartment
Oh
on
yeah,
Coruscant, and she's like tearing into him or something.
that's true.
That's something that I wanted to mention with this arc is this almost felt like the finale of Andor in a way where like I really don't know what's going to happen with the next arc. Like I feel like all the things we've been expecting happened in this episode. I mean, the end
Yeah,
of Syril and Dedra's relationship, obviously the Ghorman Massacre took place. They're now on Yavin. Like I
Mon's
don't
speech.
yeah, like the way Andor goes, like they're not just gonna have the next arc be like this overarching of like the Rebel Alliance coming together. Like there's going to still be like a core story, like these last
Yeah.
arcs have been. But what is that core story going to be?
Oh, well, we're gonna see K2SO smack that Imperial off that bridge.
Oh yeah, true.
So we'll see that. God, I was thinking about this while we were getting ready. I was like, what the fuck are they gonna talk about? Like, what are we gonna do next week? And then I was like, but Clea also has to realize they're building a weapon.
Oh yeah,
So
true.
we're gonna find out that the Empire's building some kind of weapon, which
And
will
we
then
know
lead
it's
us to
gonna
Rogue
lead to
One.
Rogue One. Yeah. Like they've I remember Tony Gilroy saying before even season 1 came out that he knew what the last shot of Andor would always be, and that it's going to be something crazy. And oh my god, we're already gonna fucking see it next week. God, how does this show end
I
next
know.
week?
Honestly, this whole like avalanche of celebration, Andor, Tales, May the
Hmm.
4th. I'm like, I'm
Revenge
gonna
of
need
the
a
Sith.
I'm gonna need a vacation.
Yeah, I think we may need to start discussing a Wayseekers summer break or something.
Yeah, oh my god, this has been an intense time to be a Star Wars fan.
100%, 100%. But Andor's been great. This arc, it's just like I said earlier in the episode, it was just everything that's happened so far coming to fruition. All of season 1, all of season 2 so far. Like I feel like we're here now. Like we've arrived at our destination, I feel
We're
like.
One could say we're definitely in our Andor era.
Yes, exactly. And I think on that note, Scotty, if we have nothing else to say, why don't you send us out of here until next week, the finale of Andor?
Well, make sure you follow us on social media so you don't miss any of our Andor content, especially for the finale. Thank you all so much who have subscribed and liked and commented recently. We really appreciate the support. Follow us on social media at Wayseekers Pod or wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss out. And may the force be with you always.